Hi there, and welcome to My Week. I'm Christy McDonald. We have a lot coming up for you, including a closer look at one woman's story as she faces deportation. It's a look inside the system and the process as it happens. Plus, we are debating some of the biggest headlines this week. Comey's out, Dan Kildee doesn't want to be governor, and the high cost of insurance in Detroit. So let's get to it with our My Week contributors at the table. Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Hi, guys. It's always good to see you.
Yes.
Good week so far?
Yeah.
A pretty busy week.
Yeah. Quiet week, nothing going on.
No, nothing's ever going on in the news. So I was picking up the paper and I read Nolan's column the other day. We all heard the news that Dan Kildee, Congressman Dan Kildee from the Flint area, who there was a lot of speculation that he would run for governor, but instead he decides the best work that he can do is in Congress right now, which opens up the race in a couple of different ways. And the name that came out this week that I read in your column was Mark Bernstein, and we know now that he has been going around saying, I'm really interested in running for governor.
Thinking about.
Well, he's thinking about it. He's thinking very seriously about it.
He said he's interested. Now, he didn't say he was in. He's got a lot of things to consider, family things, as well as what he told me was that, you know, he wants to make sure he can run a civil campaign. He's not interested.
Is that possible when we say civil campaign?
I mean, if you look the mood of the nation and everybody's screaming at each other, you can't even, you know, somebody can't even give a commencement speech without being screamed at. I doubt there'll be much civility in the 2018 campaign. I think it'll look like some kind of third world brawl. But, you know, Kildee's departure opened up the door because there are a lot of Democrats who aren't sold on Gretchen Whitmer or her ability to win this. And, you know, Bernstein, obviously one of them. I mean, Kildee wanted the unions to clear the way for him. They wanted them to force her out so he could run a sure thing primary. Remember, he's the only guy in this race so far who has a job at risk. He would have to leave Congress to run, and he did not want to go through a bruising primary or an expensive primary. They didn't do that, and so he got out. Now Democrats are fishing. They're looking around for another choice.
All right, so if they're fishing and they're looking around a little bit, and they've had a couple of years to really kind of get some stuff together, because in terms of you've got a governor who's serving for 8 years in a Republican Party who could be vulnerable. Is this the right pick? And what would someone have to say to Mark Bernstein to convince him to jump into this race?
Well, I mean, so, you know, Mark runs the firm, the law firm that they own, and he'd have to find somebody to do that. That maybe sounds easy, but his brother is on the Supreme Court now. He can't do it. That I think would be one of the primary personal concerns. His sister might be able to do it, but does she want to do? You know, these things are all very tricky. Mark and I have known each other a really long time, dating back to our time at University of Michigan together. I think the world of him. He is one of the brightest people I know. He understands policy in a way that a lot of people who've spent a lot of time in public positions don't understand policy, and the civility thing is genuine with him. I mean, Mark does not. He has strong beliefs, and he pursues those, but he does not ever. I can't think of a time of Mark really getting after somebody personally, of dragging a debate down rather than trying to elevate it. And I think he could actually set that tone. For 2018, that would be good. The question for Democrats is again, electability. I think you have to start with who has a shot to really match Bill Schuette, who is, like him or hate him, somebody who has been around a long time.
And/or Brian Calley. We still haven't heard what his plans are.
But, you know, if the candidate were Schuette, this is someone who's won 2 statewide races already. This is someone who's been around since the early 1980s. Everybody knows him. They know what he's about. I think you have to match that kind of weight, I guess.
So then let me like lob a couple of names out there. You know, the Mike Duggan card is always still out there if that's a situation. Nolan, you're shaking your head.
I think that would be a sleazy thing for
I don't think he can do
Duggan
that.
to do.
He can't run now
for mayor, then win and say, oh, by the way, I'm announcing my campaign.
Okay, so that's out.
The timing's just wrong on that.
That's out. Mark Hackle, that name always pops up when it comes time for a governor's race.
I think he's got his own problems in Macomb, fighting with a lot of different factions there, including inside the Democratic Party, not just Republicans. I like Mark Hackle. I don't think he brings the weight that a Mark Bernstein would. I still think you have to think about
take on
someone
the Republican ticket. One more name.
I think Hackle could win. I know he's chomping at the bit to run. You know, a lot of his people close to him are saying, yeah, not this time, this isn't it. And it might not be it, but I know he wants to run.
And if you haven't seen the television commercials for Jeff Feiger 2020, could it be Jeff Feiger 2018? Could he try this one more time?
Oh my God, that'd be an answered prayer.
But the other name I would put out there is Gary Peters,
right,
who has also won statewide race and won statewide race as a Democrat in a Republican sort of tied year.
You think he would have the weight, the policy experience, and the name recognition to take on
a Bill shooting?
And he doesn't have to risk his seat. Now,
right,
there is some damage in running and losing and then having to run again, in 2020. But I don't think he'll do it. I think he could probably win it. But you go back to Bernstein. I mean, there's a candidate who looks and sounds a lot like Rick Snyder did on the Republican side. He works across party lines. He's not interested in going out there and saying horrible things about Republicans. Whether that sort of candidate would play in today's Democratic Party, I don't know. You've got to factor in the Bernie Sanders wing, which is growing in strength, and none of these candidates we've thrown out on the table have particular appeal to them.
I think civility in politics is a really interesting topic to go more in depth in, and if we can
one of the chamber's pillars on Mackinac.
Achieve that. We'll be talking about that up at Mackinac. Hey, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what's been happening in Washington, D.C., and I don't think that you can walk by cable news or newspaper without knowing about the firing of James Comey. What I thought was interesting was the column that Barbara McQuade, the former U.S. attorney, who we all know fairly well, wrote an op-ed and talking about that she believes that he has always had the best interest in heart and he's always gone with whatever facts he has and not political persuasion. But the last line of her column was interesting to me because she said, at some point, someone at a very high level will have to decide whether to file charges. We can only hope that decision will be made by an independent leader. And I think the firing of Comey has thrown into question the independence of whatever the next leader of the FBI is. Nolan, you're making a face.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of disingenuousness here. When you think about last week, you had Democrats blaming James Comey for stealing the election for Donald Trump. Chuck Schumer standing up and saying, I've lost trust in his ability to run the department, and organizing this attack campaign on Comey to try to force Trump to fire him. Trump fires him, and now, oh my God, that's the worst thing that ever happened.
But isn't it funny, like as a news guy, but don't you really see that and you say, gosh, if I've made them mad on both sides, maybe I'm kind of doing something right?
I don't question James Comey's skills, his integrity, his independence, but he got himself in the middle of a really bitter and nasty election campaign last year. He was a ping pong ball. He does one thing, Republicans love him, Democrats hate him, and then reverse, and it went back and forth. And I think he's compromised. Neither Republicans nor Democrats trust him. Had Trump not fired him, he would have been the subject of relentless attacks from the Democratic resistance. I think he had to go. I think this investigation, if it goes to Rod Rosenstein, the deputy director of the Justice Department, is in good hands. He's a career Justice Department person, not particularly political. I think you can trust him, and I think we should see what he can do with it.
But if you keep saying that word trust, and I'm fearful that what has happened, though, has eroded the public trust and that our law enforcement is acting apolitically.
Of course.
Well, I mean, I don't think they have much trust to begin with, and the president hasn't helped that in any way with the way that he's, attacked the judiciary, attacked the FBI in the past. I mean, this is somebody who's pretty reckless in the way that he engages in rhetoric and now action that really undermines the integrity of the judicial system. Think about last week, or was it this week, where he's tweeting about Sally Yates and her testimony before she testifies. So you've got the commander-in-chief essentially engaging in witness intimidation on social media before this person goes and testifies before Congress. I mean, it's the pattern of behavior here that is disturbing, and the specter of the investigation into this administration that sort of lurks in the background. It's not believable, for instance, that Donald Trump's not thinking about that Russia investigation when he fires James Comey, not on the first day that he comes to office, which would have been the timing.
Do you believe that that's what should have happened if he was going to get rid of him? If he was going to get rid of him 20th?
For the things that he did during the election, that would have been the time to do it. Bill Clinton fired the FBI attorney, the FBI director on the first day because he was concerned. He was concerned about his integrity. He didn't think he was doing the right thing.
And that's what Trump should have done. I mean,
but doing it now makes it seem like it's about Russia.
Comey was completely compromised. Last week, Hillary Clinton stood up and said, this man cost me the election. I don't see how he could have effectively done his job. Now, the timing of this, as usual with Trump, is atrocious. The method is atrocious. But Comey had to go. And I think the challenge now, he cannot replace Comey with a Rudy Giuliani or a Chris Christie.
Well, no one's going to.
He can't do that.
Have any faith in that.
He's got to replace Comey now. I mean, the acting director perhaps is a good choice for now. He's got to replace him with somebody who has the ability to restore trust and is not a partisan.
More important, Republicans in Congress have got to force him to do that, and they haven't forced him to do much of anything yet.
And we'll have to see.
We're waiting for them to wake up.
We'll have to see. I did want to talk about de-insurance. We're going to have to table it for next week. It was a great series in the Free Press, but we are going to have to leave it right there.